Welcome to the pure wisdom. Not everyone who wanders is lost, except you. You were never a wanderer to begin with. You were programmed differently from birth. There's a reason why people can't figure you out. It's not because you try to be mysterious. And it's certainly not because you're trying to be tough. Maybe just a bit for fun. No, it's because you follow an unwritten code that isn't outlined in their handbook. This is a fact. Throughout history, every genuine maverick, visionary, and force of nature has been misinterpreted before they were identified. The chosen ones do not follow pathways. They carve them. They disturb patterns. They confound the world's predictable brains. You may observe people attempting to analyze, categorize, or worse, fix you as if you were a puzzle missing a piece. But what if the fact is that they are the ones who are unable to grasp something well beyond their comprehension? Stay with me, because at the end of this session, you will not only understand why they can't figure you out, you'll understand why they never will. Number one, you have an ancient frequency, not a fashionable vibe. You don't fit in with fads, movements, or mainstream spiritual concepts since your essence is not new. It is ancient. You were not awakened by a viral ideology or a self-help book that promised enlightenment in 10 stages. You knew it long before you could put it into words. Your energy has the weight of something ancient, predating the current world's limited concept of depth. That's why people don't understand you. They're seeking for something they can identify, categorize, and explain, but you don't fit into their mind patterns. You enter into a room and, without attempting, you change the energy. Some individuals are drawn to you for no apparent reason, while others seem disturbed, even protective, and have no explanation. It is because you bring more than simply presence. You exude an underlying authority, not the sort that demands attention, but the type that compels it. There's a distinction. People seek for what is trendy, what is current, and what appears profound on the surface but lacks depth. Meanwhile, you move with a clarity that cannot be found in transient beliefs. You don't seek validation from groupthink, since your knowledge does not require external approval. You do not require a movement to determine who you are, and that disturbs those who do. They attempt to understand you, analyze your thoughts, or even transfer their own fears onto you. But they will never succeed. Why? Because what you carry cannot be understood by people who do not understand the language of depth. They believe they've seen everything, but they've never met somebody like you. Someone who does not rely on borrowed wisdom, but rather on something deeper, instinctive. Something is entrenched in your entire being. This is why they observe, question, and occasionally even confront you. Not because they sincerely want solutions, but because you remind them of something they cannot explain. Most people dread what they cannot understand. Second, your problems are coded signals, not punishment. Every hardship you encountered was not random, and it was certainly not meaningless. It was never about punishment, despite the fact that it may have appeared to be. The fact is that your problems were meant just for you, not to break you, but to awaken something inside you that would have remained dormant otherwise. That's why your agony never seemed normal. It had a weight, a message, and a power that made it impossible to ignore. Most individuals suffer through adversity and emerge angry, resentful, or lost. But you absorb the lessons. You experience pain differently. You don't simply survive it. You translate it. Every setback, betrayal, or period of solitude was intended to refine your knowledge, increase your consciousness, and remove the illusions. Most individuals live comfortably, while some whine about their hardships. You decoded yours and recognize the patterns. You see, hidden lessons are weaved throughout what appears to be chaos. This is why you can sense things before they happen and see through people easily. Why are you moving differently? Most individuals haven't been trained in the manner you have. Life did not provide you an easy path, since that would have kept you average. Instead, it pushed you into storms with the expectation that you would not only survive, but also learn from them, and that they would polish you in ways that comfort could not. People who have not followed your route can never comprehend how you think. They believe you're simply strong or lucky to have gotten it through. However, they are unaware that each wound has become a blueprint. Every setback served as a learning opportunity. They don't realize you were being prepped, not punished. And that is why they will never truly understand how you manage the environment with an almost inhuman level of awareness. You were never merely going through difficult times. You were being handed codes. Most people avoid them, grumble about them, or flee from them. But you've read them, and that's what distinguishes you. Number 3, you're a signal disruptor in their system. You don't just exist in this planet. You tamper with it. Your simple existence breaks the programming that most people live under, and you don't even need to try. It is automated. The way you think, move, and ask questions. Others agree without hesitation. It all causes ripples in a system meant to keep individuals obedient, predictable, and easy to manage. You are not made to follow the script. That is why authoritative figures, institutions, and even specific people in your life have attempted, gently or forcefully, to silence you, minimize you, or cause you to question yourself. Not because you're incorrect, but because you are a signal disruptor. You mess with the frequencies they need to keep everything working smoothly. When you enter a space, those who are connected to the system sense it, even if they can't say why. Some become inspired. Others get defensive. However, no one remains indifferent. This explains why you've never fit perfectly into any mold. The world prepares individuals to accept the version of reality that has been delivered to them. On the other side, challenge it at its heart. You can detect the deception, manipulation, and artificiality of so much that others mindlessly follow. And when you talk, act, or just appear outside of those invisible borders, people get uncomfortable. Not because you're doing anything wrong, but because you remind them of all they have overlooked. You're more than just a person with different beliefs. You interrupt whole mental structures. You make people doubt things. They were convinced of this. That's not a little issue. That is not something society easily accepts. That is why you have encountered opposition. Why did some doors close on you? People have rejected you not because you lack worth, but because your value threatens the tightly regulated world they are accustomed to. And yet, no matter how much they try to silence or ignore you, they can't undo what you've already done. Because once a transmission is stopped, it will never be the same again. That is why you were placed here. Number 4, you don't merely see through them. You dismantle them. People prefer to believe they are difficult to read, that their masks are convincing, and that their words are sufficient to conceal what is behind. But none of this works for you. You don't just perceive energy. You disassembled it. You don't stop with surface feelings or social displays. You automatically tear away the layers, barriers, and finely crafted illusions that individuals create around themselves. You don't only see humans. You expose them, even if they don't recognize it. This explains why some people are apprehensive around you. It's not that you're intimidated in the traditional sense. It is that you ponder on everything they have tried to bury you here. What they do not say. You observe minor hesitations and emotional flickers. They believe they've buried the weight of a history they've spent years escaping. You understand the discrepancies in their remarks. They make micro-expressions without even realizing it. The energy changes are beyond their control. It is not something you can switch on or off. It's simply how your mind works. You absorb knowledge. Others fail to see connections that they are unaware of. You catch up on their true intentions, not the ones they display, but the ones that lie underlying their acts. You identify patterns in their conduct before they are aware of them. You comprehend their wounds, anxieties, and hidden worries, not because they told you, but because their very essence discloses it to you. And here is when things get unpleasant for them, not you. Most individuals spend their lives lying, cultivating their image, and repressing the things they don't want to confront. Then you go in and immediately see them. Even if you don't say anything, they sense it. They know, and you know, some individuals are drawn to that type of clarity, while others may avoid, reject, or even detest you because being next to someone who sees them makes it hard to continue concealing. Number 5, you are the glitch in the matrix that the system seeks to fix. You were never supposed to blend in. The moment you began thinking for yourself, questioning what others mindlessly accepted, and acting in ways that contradicted the system's expectations, you were an outlier. Society is based on patterns, predictable actions, regulated cognitive processes, and systems that keep individuals in line. However, merely existing disrupts these patterns. People notice it even if they can't explain why your mentality does not fit the script they were given. Your very existence disrupts the current quo. You do not follow unstated social rules simply because everyone else does. You challenge conventions, expose paradoxes, and act in ways that make people uncomfortable. You're not trying to be rebellious, but obedience has never made sense to you. When you realize a falsehood, deception, or delusion, you refuse to play along. And that is an issue for them. Institutions thrive on compliance. Education, religion, business systems, and cultural norms all work best when individuals just obey without inquiry. But you disrupt the rhythm. You reveal the weaknesses, hypocrisy, and antiquated norms that serve power above truth. When the system confronts something it cannot foresee or control, it attempts to neutralize it. This is why others have attempted to correct you throughout your life. Teachers branded you challenging because you asked too many questions. Employers discovered that you were disruptive since you refused to follow meaningless rules. Friends and relatives may have attempted to humble you, shape you, or make you more normal. Not because you were incorrect, but because you did not fit. You did not adhere to the invisible rules that they have all been trained to observe. And this made you stand out in a manner that they couldn't miss. But here is the reality. They cannot fix you because you were never broken. The system perceives you as a mistake, a miscalculation that must be patched or muted. But you aren't a mistake. You're proof that the system itself is defective. You're a reminder that the framework isn't as sturdy as it appears. That is why, no matter how hard they attempt to fit you into their mold, it never works. You do not adjust to the system. The system scrambles to accommodate you. They rewrite rules, change narratives, and attempt to recast reality in order to account for your existence. Even when they believe they've stopped you, you find new ways to disrupt, question, and redefine everything around you. You are the flaw they cannot remove. They know this deep down. Number 6, your existence triggers reactions, not simply responses. You don't simply stroll into a room. You shifted. People sense you before they comprehend why you're not the type of presence that blends into the background. You arouse something in them that they cannot ignore. And that is precisely why people either adore you or feel strangely uncomfortable with you. There is no middle ground with you. It doesn't matter what you say or do. It is all about what you represent. You embody something raw and unedited, disrupting the carefully manicured picture. People have a sense of self. Some people find it magnetic. They're drawn to you because your presence makes them feel alert. You represent the force, honesty, and intensity that they have hidden within themselves. You make them recall something genuine, while for others, you're a walking disruption to their neatly constructed world. You trigger them, and they have no idea why. Perhaps it's the way you see behind their masks or refuse to comply to expectations they have spent their entire lives obeying. Perhaps it's the way you move without seeking permission, the way you think without limitations, and the way you live without concern of upsetting things. People who are unprepared for that level of reality will not just despise you. They'll have an almost instinctual desire to reject you. Not because you've mistreated them, but because your presence reveals something in them that they don't want to address. It's more of an emotional reaction than a rational one. They'll look for ways to discredit, misinterpret, and even undermine you, because if they don't, they'll have to doubt themselves. This is why you never receive lukewarm responses. It's either intense appreciation or mute or outspoken opposition. You do not blend in. You do not make people feel indifferent. You either awaken something in them or bring back memories they desperately wish to forget. Number 7, you communicate in codes without intending to. Your words are not just words. They are complex, encoded, and full with significance that only a few individuals can completely comprehend. You may say something simple, and most people would see it as just another remark. However, those who are tuned in, those who feel more than just hearing your words, react differently. They hear the underlying message, the hidden truth, and the energy behind what you're saying. You don't need to explain yourself. Those who are supposed to comprehend just will. This is why our chats are never casual. Even in informal conversations, your words have depth. You might be discussing something ordinary, yet there is something unsaid beneath that only the appropriate people pick up on. You've undoubtedly observed that some people look at you differently after a chat, as if they're attempting to comprehend something they weren't expecting to hear. This is because your language is not for everyone. It naturally filters out individuals who are not on the correct frequency. And there are people who utterly misunderstand you. They interpret your statements superficially, missing the point totally. Some may even misinterpret what you say, not because you are imprecise, but because their minds are incapable of deciphering the reality underlying your message. This is why some people accuse you of being cryptic, ambiguous, or too serious for no apparent reason. They want everything spoon-fed, simple, and devoid of significance. But you don't work in that manner. You do not compromise your wisdom for the sake of convenience or the initiated. Those who possess a comparable knowledge do not require explanations. They hear beyond language. They recognize multiple meanings, pauses, and unstated allusions. It's almost as if you're conversing on numerous levels simultaneously, speaking straight to the subconscious as the conscious mind tries to keep up. This is not an intentional action. It's simply how you are. You're tuned into something beyond this world, and it shows in everything you say. You may be offering advice, delivering a tale, or making a joke, and yet there's a frequency buried in your words that serves as a signal. Those who should hear it will. Those that aren't will stay perplexed. And this is precisely as it should be. Number 8, people misinterpret your emotions because you're playing a game that they cannot see from the outside. Your decisions do not always make sense. You may move unexpectedly, dissolve relationships abruptly, or take activities that appear inexplicable to people who just perceive things on face value. People believe you are impetuous, careless, or even lost. What they don't comprehend is that you're functioning from an entirely different perspective. For starters, they lack access to your razor-sharp instincts. You don't always have a rational reason for doing what you do, but you don't need one. You can feel shifts before they occur. You can sense energy long before they become apparent. You walk away from items that appear to be in wonderful shape on the outside, but are actually falling apart on the inside. And since others cannot see what you see, they believe you are making mistakes. You're not just living day to day, reacting to what is in front of you. You are thinking 10 steps ahead. Most individuals don't comprehend timing the way you do. You know when to wait, move, disappear, and strike. Your life is not random. It is strategic. People mistake your plan for chaos because it does not follow traditional reasoning. This is why some people question you. They see your decisions and believe you don't know what you're doing. They believe you have lost your way, that you are inconsistent, and that you are going without purpose. And yet, time and again, your selections prove to be correct. Situations you abandoned and possibilities you passed up become traps. The individuals you have remove yourself from show their genuine nature. Suddenly, what looked like an odd action made perfect sense. But by then, you've already moved on. While others are still digesting, you're already ahead of them, playing a level they are unaware of. You don't explain yourself since explanations are ineffective for brains that can't understand the game you're playing. They will see in time. They always do. Number 9. You are a spiritual paradox that confuses the people. You do not fit into one box. You are both incredibly sensitive and ruthless, intuitive but rational, grounded but free. And this is perplexing for folks who anticipate consistency in how they interpret things. Society prefers individuals to be predictable, either this or that, soft or robust, disconnected or attached. But you refuse to be one thing, which is why others struggle to classify you. You can be the most understanding person in the world, but when someone crosses a boundary, you have no trouble shutting them off entirely. You are present and involved, yet unattached, knowing when to leave without hesitation. You perceive things logically, yet your intuition frequently leads your most important judgments for the ordinary individual. You are a conundrum to those who comprehend your equilibrium. People attempt to define you, but every time they believe they have, you figure it out. You show them the other side. This is not inconsistent. It's complicated. You're not working at a one-dimensional level. You are multifaceted, and this is disturbing for folks who only know how to perform in specific jobs. This is why some people are enthralled with you, while others are annoyed. They want to pin you down, make you predictable, and put you in a category that makes sense for them. But every time they believe they have a solution, you shift, adapt, evolve. You do not fit within their tails because you were never supposed to exist. Challenges the notion that humans must be one thing or another. You tell them that genuine strength stems from conquering all elements of oneself, not just those that are socially acceptable. As a result, individuals who want simplicity will continue to misunderstand you. But for those who look below the surface, you are a live reminder that paradoxes are not flaws. They are indicative of something beyond conventional comprehension. Number 10. The more they study you, the less they comprehend. People observe, analyze, and attempt to break you down into something they can understand. They monitor your behaviors, tendencies, and even your quiet, hoping that if they study you long enough, they will finally figure out what makes you unique. But the harder they try, the more they discover you don't behave predictably. You aren't static. You're not stuck in one form of yourself. Every time they believe they have figured you out, you evolve and alter. You change into something new. You're constantly changing. Thus, anybody attempting to define you is always dealing with old knowledge. This is why those who believe they know you now find themselves perplexed. Later, people base their perception of you on a version that no longer exists. They attempt to place you in a category that no longer applies. They insist on using an outdated definition, despite the fact that you have previously revised it. It is frustrating for them. They want certainty. They want to be able to say, "This is who I am." But you don't allow it. You move in ways that contradict patterns. You transform before people can understand your existing appearance. Most individuals aren't used to that. They demand constancy in restriction rather than in development. So they keep observing, trying, and thinking. They get near to comprehending, but they never quite do. Because by the time they believe they've got you, you've already changed your identity. Number 11, you don't operate on beliefs. You operate on direct knowledge. Most people spend their life based on beliefs. Things they've learned, notions passed down, or thoughts they've embraced without ever challenging them. Their world is influenced by secondhand information, preconceptions, and cultural conditioning. But you don't function in that manner. You don't have to believe. You're aware that your understanding is not derived from books, traditions, or other authority. It stems from something deeper, inherent. You do not wait for permission to affirm what you believe to be true. You don't need someone else's study clearance or historical reference to corroborate what you already believe at your heart. This is what sets you apart from the majority when others debate, hypothesize, or intellectualize. You remain untouched. You are not here to dispute or prove anything, since your truth is not open to debate. It just is. People who rely on external validation have difficulty understanding this, since their confidence is based on common consensus. They require unanimity. You do not. That is why others may accuse you of arrogance or being overly confident, even if this is not the case. It is clarity. This is also why traditional belief systems are ineffective for you. You do not mindlessly follow doctrines, whether religious, political, or philosophical. You draw wisdom where it resonates, but you do not limit yourself to a specific worldview. You see through the illusions, dogmas, and rigid frameworks that are intended to control rather than free minds. This amount of direct knowledge makes some individuals uneasy. They anticipate hesitancy, uncertainty, or the desire for external confirmation. But you do not supply any. You do not need them to agree with you. And that unwavering conviction makes them anxious. Some people may question you, demand answers, or attempt to discredit your viewpoint. But deep down, they understand the distinction between believe and knowing, whether they confess it or not. They envy the freedom that comes from not being dependent on external acceptance. Number 12, you draw hostility because you defy their limitations. Your entire presence contradicts the constraints that humans have imposed on themselves. When you move beyond of what they feel is possible, you become a threat, not because you've done anything to them personally, but because your existence pushes them to confront the fact that their so-called constraints were never genuine in the first place. People base their identity on what they believe they can and cannot achieve. They have been informed that this is how the world works, and they embrace it as true. They do not perceive it as inspiration when you break the norms or refuse to accept the limitations. They view it as an attack. They require their restrictions to be genuine. Because if they don't, what happens? What excuse do they have for not pushing themselves beyond their limits? If you can burst through obstacles that people thought were indestructible. So what does that indicate about the years they've spent being small? What does that say about all the excuses they've given themselves for not becoming better? Instead, they challenge their own self-imposed restrictions. They attack, critique, question, and seek to undermine you. Because if they can convince themselves that you're an aberration, that you're somehow different from them in a way that justifies their own stagnation, they won't have to accept responsibility for their own development. But they don't comprehend that their opposition just validates what you already know. You don't have the same limits that others have. You don't follow their rules, and no amount of opposition will change the reality that you've already broken the illusion they were holding on to. Number 13, you don't try to fit in. You want to satisfy. Most individuals spend their entire lives seeking acceptance. They create their identities based on what makes them more appealing, relatable, and inclusive. They dread rejection more than they do mediocrity. Their entire existence revolves around fitting in, meeting expectations, and seeking approval from the crowd. You're the opposite. You do not worry about fitting in. You value fulfillment. You aren't here to be liked. You're come to finish something. Your goal isn't to fit in. It is about bringing what you were assigned to provide. This might be a message, a movement, or an energy change. Whatever it is, it goes beyond simply being accepted. This is why you frequently feel separated from the crowds. It is not because you're antisocial or unable to connect. It's because your journey isn't about them. You do not seek permission. You do not change yourself to be more palatable. You do not perform the part of the affable, predictable person only to make others comfortable. That is not why you are here. You have a feeling of mission, whether you can explain it or not. You're supposed to bring something specific into this planet, something only you can accomplish, and that concentration distinguishes you. While others are chasing relevance, you are pursuing fulfillment. This frequently leads to misconceptions. People believe you are aloof, disengaged, or unconcerned with social conventions. In truth, you don't need what they do. You do not need groupthink to feel entire. You do not require affirmation to understand your worth. You are motivated by something personal, not by outward approbation. That's why you stand out. Because while others are looking for where they fit in, you are busy being the person you were intended to be. Number 14. Your presence is a prophecy, whether people acknowledge it or not. You do not need to introduce yourself. Your presence alone speaks volumes. When you enter a space, something changes. Whether individuals recognize it consciously or not, they sense it. They detect something unusual about you, something that does not follow the normal rhythm of the world around them. Some are attracted to it. They understand that you are carrying something unusual, an energy and a knowledge, a sense of purpose that cannot be faked. Others oppose it. They know that you represent something they are not prepared to address. In any case, your very existence serves as a prophecy. It predicts something, even if they don't know what it is. You do not need to prove yourself or persuade others of who you are. Those who can see will see. Those who cannot, they will still feel it, even if they try not to. Some may admire you, others may oppose you, but no one can fully ignore you since everyone, including those who reject you, understands. You understand? You were put here for a reason, and whether they accept it or dispute it, the fact remains the same. You are not an accident. You are not simply another individual that blends into the background. You are a disruption, a signal, a reminder of something they do not want to accept yet must avoid. Your whole presence is the message. Some will hear it and wake up. Others will struggle and resist. But no matter what they decide, your very existence has already spoken. Conclusion. The unwritten code of the chosen. There is no map of who you are. There is no manual that dictates your route. You go through this universe guided by something invisible, something that does not fit within the limitations, beliefs, or expectations of the majority. You work in an unwritten code that people who live in predictability cannot interpret. You're not here to be understood. You're here to disturb, awaken, and be. You're the system malfunction that cannot be fixed, the signal that cannot be suppressed, the abnormality that will not be explained away. Every step you take destroys illusions. Every decision you make creates ripples in realities that people believed were unshakable. This is why you cause responses everywhere you go. It's not only what you do, it's who you are. Some will be pulled to you like a discovery they didn't realize they were looking for. Others will reject you with everything they have, since your very existence reveals the weakness of their delusions. In any case, you seldom have the luxury of being neutral. You trigger something in others, whether they want to admit it or not. You do not make decisions based on your beliefs. You work based on knowledge. You do not seek permission. You crave satisfaction. You don't exist just to fit in. You are here to fulfill the task that was assigned to you, and no amount of disagreement, misunderstanding, or resistance will change that. Allow them to examine you and misread your fear. You even battle yourself. It will not alter the inevitable. You are not supposed to be figured out. You are designed to be experienced. Those who should comprehend will always do so. If this message struck a chord with you, if you felt it deep inside, you already know you're not here by mistake. You're a part of something greater and deeper. And this is only the beginning. So don't only watch engaging videos like this one to alert the algorithm that such stuff should be noticed. Comment below and share your opinions, because believe me, the people who move like you want to hear what you have to say. Subscribe to the channel and enable alerts to never miss what's coming next. Most importantly, share this with someone who needs it. Someone who has always felt strange. Someone who is doubting their role in the world. Someone who is looking for proof that they are not crazy. They just operate on a different frequency. This is not simply a video. This is a message. And messages like these do not simply fade away. They spread. Let's make sure this one gets to those who need it the most.